They didn't think I would hear them. That was their first mistake. I was sitting in the sunroom at the back of the house, the one with the old cedar paneling my late husband Richard had put up himself 30 years ago. The afternoon light was coming through the glass in long, flat strips, the way it does in October in Nova Scotia, low and pale and tired. My daughter was in the kitchen with her husband. They thought the television was loud enough. It wasn't. "She's not going to last another winter anyway," my son-in-law said. "And when she goes, we get everything. The house, the investments, all of it. We just have to be patient." There was a pause. I heard the refrigerator open. "How patient?" my daughter asked. I sat very still. The tea in my hands had gone cold without my noticing. "My name is Margaret. I am 68 years old. I built a life in this province with my own hands, raised 2 children in this house, and buried my husband in the churchyard at the end of the road. I am not a rich woman by any standard I would have recognized when I was young, but the house is paid for, and Richard's life insurance, and 31 years of careful savings had grown into something none of us had expected. My financial advisor told me 2 years ago that my total estate was worth just over $2 million in Nova Scotia. For a retired schoolteacher, that is a great deal of money. Apparently, my son-in-law agreed. "I want you to understand something before I go any further. My daughter, I will call her Claire, was not a cruel child. She was bright and funny, and she used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long car rides. I have photographs of her at 5 years old, standing in rubber boots in a puddle in the driveway, laughing at something I can no longer remember. When she married her husband, I will call him Derek, I told Richard I had a bad feeling. Richard said I was being unfair. Richard was a better person than me in almost every way, but he was wrong about Derek. Derek had been between jobs for 4 of the 7 years they had been married. He had ideas, he always said. Projects. There was the renovation company that lasted 8 months, the fishing charter that sank literally, the boat sank the online business I never fully understood, and most recently, a partnership with a man from Dartmouth that involved cryptocurrency and that I had refused to lend money to when Derek asked me directly 18 months ago. He had not forgotten that refusal. I could tell by the way he looked at me at Sunday dinners, a particular flatness behind his eyes, the way he passed the bread without offering it. After I heard that conversation in the kitchen, I did not go to the police. I want to explain why, because I know that is the first thing anyone would ask. I had no evidence. I had heard 2 sentences through a wall. Derek was careful. He had always been careful. If I went to the RCMP and told them my son-in-law had said something ominous in my own kitchen, they would write it down and do nothing, and Derek would know I had gone, and whatever he was planning would only become harder to see. So, I listened instead. Over the following 3 weeks, I became very quiet in the house. I have a habit of moving slowly anyway, the way older women do when they have learned that hurrying rarely improves anything. But now I moved slowly with a purpose. I left rooms before conversations finished. I came downstairs at odd hours. I checked the mail before anyone else was awake. It was the mail that told me something was wrong. The envelope was from my bank, the Royal Bank branch in town, and it was addressed to Derek, not to me. To Derek, at my address. Inside was a confirmation letter for what the bank called a financial management consultation, scheduled for the following Tuesday. My name was not on the letter. Derek's was, along with a reference number I did not recognize. I put the letter back in the envelope. I held it for a long time at the kitchen table, alone, with my second cup of coffee going cold, the same way the tea had gone cold 3 weeks before. Then I did what Richard always told me to do when I did not understand something legal or financial. I called my lawyer. Her name is Patricia, and she has been my family's solicitor for 11 years. I have her personal cell number because she gave it to me the day we settled Richard's estate, and she told me to use it if I ever needed her. I had never used it. I used it that morning. "Margaret," she said, after I had read her the letter. "Has anyone asked you to sign anything recently? Any documents at all?" I thought about it. 3 months ago, Claire had brought home a folder of papers and told me they were for my estate planning, that my original will was outdated, and that Derek had found a very good financial planner who could help me reorganize everything. I had signed 2 documents at the kitchen table while Claire made dinner, and Derek sat across from me pointing to the lines. I had not read them carefully. I am ashamed of that now. Claire is my daughter. Derek is her husband. I was sitting in my own kitchen. I signed something, I told Patricia. 2 things. Can you describe them? I could not. I had not kept copies. Derek had collected the papers before I could ask for one. All right, Patricia said. I need you to come in today. Don't tell anyone. I told Claire I was going to the pharmacy and drove myself into town. What Patricia found, when she pulled my records, was this. 8 weeks earlier, a document had been registered with the Nova Scotia Registry of Deeds, granting Derek a broad power of attorney over my financial affairs. The second document had transferred signing authority on my primary investment account, a registered retirement income fund worth, at that time, $460,000 to Derek as my designated manager. I had signed both of them. My signature, witnessed by a notary I had never met, on documents I had been told were routine estate planning forms. This is financial elder abuse, Patricia said. She did not soften it. I appreciated that. He hasn't moved any money yet. We caught this early. But Margaret, this needs to be reported, and we need to revoke this power of attorney today. How? I asked. You sign a revocation. It's a single page. I have it ready. I signed it. Patricia filed it the same afternoon. She also contacted my bank directly and flagged the account. 2 days later, Derek received a letter from the Royal Bank informing him that his management authority had been revoked and that a note had been placed on my file. I was home when he read it. I heard him in the hallway, the sound of the envelope tearing, and then silence, and then his footsteps going up the stairs at a pace I had not heard from him before. That evening, Claire came to my room. She sat on the edge of the bed the way she used to when she was a teenager and wanted to have a serious conversation. Her hands were in her lap. Mom, she said, Derek says there's been some kind of administrative confusion with your accounts. I looked at her for a long moment. There's no confusion, I said. She looked at her hands. He was trying to help you. He was just trying to protect the estate. He forged my witness signature, I said. He had a notary witness a document I signed without reading. That is not help, Claire. She didn't say anything. How long have you known? I asked. The way her chin moved told me the answer before she found words for it. I did not ask her to leave. I did not raise my voice. I sat in my own chair, in my own room, in the house I had lived in for 31 years, and I felt something change in me, the way the season changes, not in a single moment, but arriving all at once when you finally notice it. I'd like to go to sleep, I said. She left. The next morning I called my son. His name is Thomas. He lives in Vancouver with his partner and his 2 golden retrievers, and he teaches high school English, which is perhaps the best thing a child of a schoolteacher can do. I had not told Thomas any of this yet, because I had not wanted to frighten him, and because some part of me had been hoping that what I had overheard in the sunroom was not what it sounded like. I told him everything on the phone, from the conversation in the kitchen to Patricia's office to Claire sitting on my bed the night before. Thomas was on a flight to Halifax the following day. Having my son in the house changed things. Not because he confronted Derek, he didn't. Not at first, but because Derek could no longer move through my house with the ease he'd had before. I watched Derek calculate the situation the same way I'd seen him calculate everything else, and I could see the moment he understood that the revocation was permanent, that the notary would likely be facing a professional complaint, and that whatever he had planned had not worked. He became very pleasant. That was the tell. Derek was never pleasant without a reason. Patricia had, by this point, referred my case to a lawyer in Halifax who specialized in financial elder abuse. This is more common than most families want to believe. In Canada, the Department of Justice estimates that financial abuse is the most common form of elder abuse in the country, and in the majority of cases, the person responsible is a family member with access to the home. I had been exactly the kind of person these situations happened to, trusting, recently widowed, not as careful with paperwork as I should have been. The Halifax lawyer, his name was Mr. Chen, told me that the case for criminal fraud was strong. The power of attorney had been obtained through misrepresentation. The notary, when contacted, admitted he had been paid by Derek to witness documents without properly verifying my informed consent. This is a criminal offense under the Criminal Code of Canada. The RCMP opened a file. Derek was charged 6 weeks later with fraud over $5,000 and obtaining a financial document by misrepresentation. Claire was interviewed as a witness. She cooperated. Patricia told me this was how it often went. The spouse who knew, who had looked away, who had told themselves a story about it being helpful, who finally sat across from an officer and found they could no longer hold the story together. I am not going to tell you I forgave Claire easily. I'm not going to tell you I have fully forgiven her now. What I will tell you is that she is my daughter, and she called me on a Tuesday evening in November, 3 months after Derek had moved out of their apartment in Dartmouth, and she cried on the phone in a way I had not heard from her since she was a child. I listened. That is what I could give her then. Just listening. Derek was convicted the following spring. He received a conditional sentence and 3 years of probation, with a full restitution order, though there was nothing to restore, because Patricia had stopped the transfer before a single dollar had moved. The notary lost his certification. The financial planner who had been involved in setting up the new account structure was investigated separately. I sold the house in July, not because I had to, because I wanted to, because I had lived in that house through the best years of my life and the worst month of my life, and I found I could no longer look at the sunroom without hearing those voices through the wall. Thomas thought I should keep it. Patricia said nothing, which was her way of saying it was entirely my decision. I called a realtor I had known for 20 years, and we listed it on a Thursday, and it sold in 9 days. I bought a small property on Cape Breton Island. It is not large. There are 3 rooms and a porch and a wood stove that works, and from the kitchen window I can see the Brasdor Lake in the morning before the mist has lifted. Thomas and his partner came to help me move in. We unpacked boxes for 2 days and ate takeout from a place in Baddock, and on the second evening we sat on the porch and watched the light go out of the sky over the water, and I felt, for the first time in a long time, entirely like myself. I am telling you this story because I want you to know what I learned. I learned that signing something you don't read, even in your own kitchen, even because you trust the person across the table, is still signing it. I have said this to every woman my age I know, and I will say it here. If anyone, including your own family, asks you to sign a document related to your property or your finances, you call your lawyer first. You take the document home. You read it 3 times. You ask questions. Love does not require signatures on a deadline. I learned that the people who mean to take something from you do not announce themselves. They become helpful. They offer to manage things. They sit across from you at your own table and tell you it's for your benefit. Derek was not a monster. He was an ordinary man who had run out of patience and ideas and had decided that the simplest solution to his problems was sitting in a sunroom in Nova Scotia, trusting people she should have been more careful about. And I learned that it is never too late to become more careful. I am 68 years old. I have a porch and a wood stove and a lake outside my window. My son calls me every Sunday. My grandson is learning to read, and when they visit, he sits beside me on the porch and asks me to tell him a story, and I always say the same thing before I begin. I say, pay attention. Pay attention to what people do, and not only to what they tell you they mean. He is 6 years old, and he doesn't understand that yet, but one day he will. I sip my tea, and the mist is still rising off the water, and the morning is very quiet and entirely mine.